Hello bass family and welcome to Everything Bass. Today we're moving on with modes 3. Math is hard. Modes 3 Phrygian. So if this happens to come up on your feed and you're not a subscriber to the channel and this is the first mode video you're seeing or first video you're seeing and you're not familiar with the modes, you may want to go back and look. I did a video called Intro to the Modes, and that's a good just so you can kind of get an overview of how the modes are created, which I think answers a lot of questions out of the gate. And then modes 1 was for Ionian, modes 2 was for Dorian, and modes 3 is now Phrygian. I think it's important to kind of learn them in that order because it helps you, I think, not get lost in the weeds, that you can kind of see how they all relate, and it makes it more easily consumed as a player, especially if you've kind of been freaked out about the modes. You're thinking that, modes aren't for me. They're for everybody. Really, just think of the modes. I've said this before in previous videos. Just think of them as scales. If I show you a new scale, we have to figure out what chords the scale supports, and we have to figure out what color tones are different from other scales of its kind. And then it just becomes another palette of colors that you can paint with. So I'm excited to show you today's scale. So we're going to do E Phrygian. And I'm going to have you go up to the 7th fret so we don't use any open strings. I think you can get a really good look at the intervals and all that. So, of course, E. Now, it has a minor second. This is one of the first scales I've shown you guys since starting these lessons that has a flat or minor second. So that's a half step. Now, your pinky plays the minor third. Your index plays the perfect fourth. Your ring finger plays the perfect fifth. It has a minor 6, you can play with your pinky, minor 7, and the octave. I'm going to play that without talking so you can both hear and see what I'm doing. So when we're playing a new scale, or learning a new scale, one thing you have to figure out is what's the triad and what's the 7th chord. So let's look at it. So remember, the triad is the first, third, and fifth note of a scale. So we have our first note, we have a minor third, and our perfect fifth. Right there, that tells you that the Phrygian mode has within it a minor triad, which means it matches up with minor chords. In this case, an E minor chord. Now, on certain charts, you might see that as an E with a little lowercase m. You might see it with the E with M-I-N spelled out, and you might see it with an E and a minus symbol, just like in math, a subtraction symbol. All those actually stand for the same thing, which is a minor triad. Now let's figure out what kind of 7 it has. So we have the minor root, the minor third, the perfect fifth, a minor 7. So right there, this scale would play over a minor 7 chord very well. Keep in mind that so we have the minor 7 arpeggio within it. Now we want to look at the scale tones to see what's a little different. What would make this different than, say, Dorian, which we learned in the last unit? A couple things. One is it does have that minor 2. There's only 2 modes that have the minor 2. So right away, that's that cool, trill, kind of darker sound. So that's an important scale tone or color tone that we would use in our decision process to go, okay, well, which scale I want to use over this minor 7 or minor triad. So then we have a perfect fourth, vanilla, solid, passing tone. Doesn't have a lot of color to it. And we have a perfect fifth, of course, minor 6. That's another really big tone for me. That really creates a serious emotion. It's got that kind of really cool, dark, minor-y sound. So that's one of my deciding factors when I decide, hey, which scale do I want to use? So for me, the real identity tones here are the minor 2 and the minor 6. You're going to want to explore this on your own. If you have any capabilities to record a minor chord or a minor 7 chord, and just play the scale slowly through it. Listen to when the notes sound real restful and resolved, and when they sound real tense, where you need to play it but move to one of the chord tones to resolve it. These are really important moments that you can't skip as a musician. Just being able to get your own relationship with the scale, like, oh, I like these colors because they make me think of this, or they make me feel this. We need to relate all this to communicating a feeling or an emotion. The reason I say that is that's the music that lasts. when we can listen to a song and relate to it and it makes us feel something, that's a valuable song to us. Sometimes the problem that shred music got into, and believe me, I love hearing just virtuoso players, but the albums I don't go back and listen to a lot are when they were just playing really crazy over the top playing. It's fascinating. You're like, wow, listen how fast he's playing, or listen to those arpeggios, that's so cool. But if it's not telling me anything, if it's not conveying an emotion, I don't really go back to listen to it, maybe rarely, just to kind of, again, be amazed by the actual mastering of the instrument. So it depends on your goals as a songwriter, as a bass player. But if you want to create things that inspire people or they can relate to, I would think about, first of all, figuring out what does the scale mean to you, so that when you see that chord come up, you can make this decision in a nanosecond, where a chord comes up in a song and you think, oh, I love that minor second, minor sixth of Phrygian. I'm going to use that scale because it makes you feel something. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. Now there's other usage over using Phrygian instead of just the minor triad and the minor 7 chord. But as I said beginning here, because I don't want to overwhelm you with too many options, let's just narrow it to its most basic, easiest usage. And then later, in series later, I'll go into more advanced usage, and it's very cool. Now at this point, you know C Ionian from the modes 1, modes 2, you know D Dorian, and modes 3, you know E Phrygian. Now I chose those particular roots because those scales all are in the key of C. Now how can we prove that? Well, let's go to E Phrygian again. I'm going to play the notes and I'm going to say them out loud so you can hear. All the notes will be natural. I won't say sharp or flat, which means that all the notes in the key of C are natural, so that's why they relate. So here we go. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. Now, of course, if you played a Phrygian with a different root, it would have sharps and flats because that would then relate to another key, or it'd be drawn from another key. Another cool practicing exercise now, if you've watched all 3 of these videos so far, and also a way to keep the information fresh, is to play them in the roots I gave you. C Ionian, D Dorian, E Phrygian. Now what you effectively did is from this C to this E, you played all the natural notes. And there's a lot you can do with that, but again, I don't want to overwhelm you, so I would just say practice that. And you can do things like go up the Ionian, down the Dorian, up the Phrygian, make it a little more technical, a little more interesting. Yeah, I really love this. I really love this. Now, traditionally, this scale has always had kind of a Latin flavor to it. And I had one instructor tell me that's because in a simplistic way, but I appreciate what he was trying to do. He's trying to give me a relationship to the scale to help me remember it. But if you take the first, the minor second, and the minor third, and you play a power chord on each one, it does have kind of a Latin flavor to it. Now also, in the late 80s, early 90s, when a lot of players were doing neoclassical music, shred and things like that, and they wanted to convey maybe a more exotic sound, a Latin or even Egyptian sound, I heard people using Phrygian in that aspect. And classical music, of course. There's been phrases pointed out to me by instructors where, oh, that's a Phrygian phrase, and you could hear it and it had that kind of flavor to it. But you know what? These are just suggestions. You really have to discover it for yourself, and that's why I do recommend, whenever you're studying anything, any scale, is shut off everything and just take time to play the scale, make up bass lines, improvise with it, and you'll get an identity to it, and it'll become something personal to you instead of just notes. It'll also help you remember it. If you're having trouble, maybe this is your second or third run through trying to memorize the modes and you're having a hard time doing it. One of the missing components may be you actually practicing and playing songs and making up bass lines with the mode. So that's something to think about. As always, guys, you can take this mode and every scale you know, and go through my series called Things to Do with Scales. Basically, it's a series of exercises that if you put all those exercises through that scale, or inverse, you take that scale and put it through all the exercises, you will ultimately have a richer understanding of the scale. You'll be able to remember it better, and you'll be able to move it around to other keys so easily. So I do suggest that. That alone could be a really great 30 minutes of practice, is taking a scale for the day and going through those videos. So I do encourage you to do that. All right, moving on to today's Encore item, kind of relates, and I chose it for this reason, and that is Iron Maiden's phenomenal 1984 album called Power Slave. Man, this was where I heard harmonic minor played really well. I heard some Phrygian phrases and things like that. And it's where I started seeing the value of, wow, I want to have my music be diverse. I don't want always to play the same minor scale over the same chord. This was one of those albums that said, this is the result when you don't limit yourself to one or two scales and just use them over and over again. And I love it. I think this album is super strong. You know, of course, everyone points to, if you're a fan of metal, you know 2 Minutes to Midnight. That's a very popular song, and it's a great song, and it's still on my, I have a playlist of, you know, songs I listen to when I work out or when I'm driving on the road trips and stuff, and it's always in there. It's just a great song. But there's deeper material. The instrumental Lost for Words, and I hope I pronounced that right, Lost for, I always just said Lost for Words, but maybe it's Lost for Words, whatever. But it's a great instrumental, and it's also wonderful if you want to kind of dip your toe into the Steve Harris pool and kind of get some of his influences in your playing. This is a great one to start with. There are transcriptions online, or just try to use your ear and figure it out. But it's a very cool short instrumental. Now, when I first got this, I got it on a vinyl, and I wore out side 2, because to me side 2 was really so strong, and there's just 3 songs. So Back in the Village, I thought it was so powerful song. I mean, listen to the lyric content of it. And I think the music matches it strong. Of course, Steve plays out of his head on this. But then Power Slave is one of those songs that had such a strong theme to it. I mean, you can really feel that exoticness of this of their composition. And I think Bruce Dickinson sounds phenomenal as a singer on this. Every member through the whole roster just shines on this song. And of course, hardcore Maiden fans know the song very well, but it is Rime in the Ancient Mariner. It's a very long song, taken from the poem Rime in the Ancient Mariner. But listen really closely to Steve Harris here, and it's really like a classical music composition. He states one kind of section, one movement, and then it evolves. And of course, that wonderful instrumental section in the middle is a study in cool, creative heavy metal bass playing. Man, I love that song. And I was actually really fortunate to see them live on the Live After Death tour and play this live. And it was amazing. First of all, they nailed it. It sounded just like the record. And they did really cool things with the lighting rig, and it was just, I think it was an amazing example of putting as much energy into your presentation as in your composition, so that you really represent the song thematically well. It's great. You can actually, there's a live concert video out that you can actually check out, and it's called Life After Death, and it's Maiden. And you can actually watch it, and you'll see what I mean. It's such a great song. That's a great live concert. I should have made that the Encore item. Well, hindsight's 2020. So there you go, Phrygian mode. You now have 3 of the 7 modes down. You're almost halfway there. And don't be overwhelmed. If you feel yourself overwhelmed, if there's something that's not connected there, if you're just lost, don't be lost. Either comment in the section below what's really tripping you up, where do you lose, you know, if you can, give me as much information where I lost you, and I will address it as soon as I see the comment. Or you can email me at dtitus@daletitus.com. If it's something you're more comfortable talking one-on-one, that's what that email address is there for. Guys, thank you so much, man. I value this time together. I've said it before. It's one of my favorite moments of my week is when I can sit down and record these lessons, because I know it's going to be a catalyst for conversation, and I'm excited about that. I also really, I grew up in a small town, and there was no bass instructors in our town itself. I had to go to the next town over, and it was frustrating because I also didn't have much money. And so I felt a little lost. Now, the internet wasn't a thing back then. This was in the mid-'80s. So the whole theme behind creating this channel was not only to have a community of bass players where you could share ideas, but that I could offer you, if you're finding yourself in that same position, don't really have available teacher in your area, you don't have the money for whatever they're charging, this would be at least something that you could do to improve your playing and realize your dreams. To that end, if you really want to go deeper and get the most out of these lessons, go to the description of this video. You'll see a link to my Patreon account. Just click on that. It's only $8 a month to become a Backstage Pass member, but what that gives you is the ability for every month that you're a subscriber, you can actually go through my entire archive and download all the written materials. If the video has a written material, which is like 99% of them, you can actually print it out. It's a PDF, and it gives you stuff that might be a little easier to access after you've seen the video, so you don't always have to practice in front of your device or computer. And of course, that $8 goes to help grow this channel and get new equipment. I have some big plans of what I want to do, but unfortunately, I'm a little limited in my financial resources. So anytime you can contribute to the channel, I promise you it'll go right back into the channel. So thank you guys so much. If you could like, share, and subscribe to the channel, that's so amazing. It really helps me out a lot. And you know, just keep an eye on. I post every weekend, so you know, if you click the little bell icon when you subscribe, you'll be notified, and it'll be new material that you can continually work on. It's just what feeds me right now. It's what gets me so excited, is to think that I'm helping you guys with your journey as a bass. All right, I will see you guys at the next video. Thanks for stopping by.